So I have this bungalow style house that I've modeled, and I've added textures and materials to it. And let me hit a quick render here so you can see what that looks like. And now I'm just going to basically create a scene around it. There's a couple approaches for that. We can either start to go up here and drop down entities that we need to build our scene, like the floor and physical sky, or we could go in here and grab some landscapes. But we're just going to go ahead and leapfrog that concept and go up here to the content browser and click this tab, and I'm going to go to the spotlight search and type in glorious. There's a pre-made setup for scenery called glorious sunset in here, and when I double click that, it'll show up in the viewport. So now if I go back to my objects tab, you can see that I have a physical sky, a camera set up for me, and a series of landscapes that are already adjusted for me. Now I can make adjustments to those landscapes individually. I can make adjustments to the camera. As I zoom in and out, it'll give me different views of my scene. And I can go up to this physical sky and I can adjust it. And this is just going to save me some time so that I don't have to drop those entities down into my viewport and make adjustments individually. So to get our house, we're going to go up here to the window drop down, and notice at the bottom of the order there's glorious sunset checked. That's this scene, and my other scene, which is my house model, is underneath it. So I'm just going to click that, and I'm going to go back here and click my cube, and I'm going to go to edit, copy, go back to the window, select glorious sunset, and click edit, paste. And all I did was copied and pasted my house, or it's listed as cube, into this scene that was already set up for me, the glorious sunset. So it just saves you some time, and it's a pretty good way to work. Now we're starting to get some objects built up in here in our object manager, and it's easy to start to kind of lose track of what's what. So I'm going to start labeling stuff. With the cube selected, I'll double click where it says cube, and I'm going to type in house, and I'll leave the rest of this stuff as is. And then as we add, we're going to basically go in and rename things. Now with a quick render, you'll see that the render is going to take a little bit of time on the machine that I'm using. I could sit here for a couple of minutes trying to get a render out of this. So I'm going to go up here into my render settings and uncheck global illumination. And one quick hack is to go up here into this the split view, the upper right hand corner of your viewport, click that little tab, and you'll see the original view we were working with, perspective. You'll see an overhead view and a right and a left view. And this works really well when you're trying to build a large scene, especially that top view. So I'm going to click on that top view panel, I'm going to hit H on my keyboard, and it's going to basically bring everything into view. So here are 5 different parts of landscaping that come with the glorious sunset. My house is in the middle of this, and this green upside down triangle, that's actually the camera view. So I'm going to use that to navigate as much as I can, just to simplify things. The other thing is when I hit render now with this smaller view, let me go back to the perspective view. When I hit render with the smaller view, it's going to render much faster, so I get a pretty quick look at what things are looking like. Now this is as it states, glorious sunset. So the sun's setting, and there's a huge amount of haze back here, and things are looking kind of different than what I would want it to look like. So I'll click back to that original view, go to physical sky, and I'm going to click time and location. Now I can change the actual month that my scene is in, or I can change the time of the day that that's set in. So as I click through, we'll stick with March. Different hours of the day, you can see that the sun is being put overhead, and you can see it set as I click through it. So I'm going to do a kind of a broad daylight scene. Go up into that split screen again, hit a quick render, and you can see how different this looks. I've got a material issue, but I'm just going to ignore that for now. So it's a pretty pleasant scene. and I'm going to go ahead and just stick with that for my build, and you can adjust it any way you want. Alright, holding Option on the keyboard, I'm just going to kind of pan around. You can see what's what. I have my, my house kind of stuck here in the side of this hill, so with model mode selected, I'm just going to move this over a little bit, and I'm going to move that forward just a touch too. So let me navigate around to this this blue Z handle and move it up just a touch. Now I'm going to build a street right here along the front of my house and a little walkway going back to my my front door, and I'll add some material to that as well. So let me just navigate a little bit closer. To make my street, there are some in the content browser, I know, but I'm just going to go ahead and grab a cube, and I'm going to model that cube out just so I have a shape that looks kind of like a straight. So I'm just going to stretch that out. And now I don't have to stretch it out too far. I just need to be able to get a picture of it essentially when we render it out. So I'm going to stretch it out to either side of the front part of that landscaping, let's say, and I'm going to sink it down into the landscaping a little bit so that it's pretty much hidden aside from the surface of the street. I'll pull it up just a touch. I'm going to grab another cube, drop it in, move it forward, and I'm going to create a little walkway with this. So I'll narrow that down, and I'll get it about to the same level as my street. So I'm going to make it a little bit longer. Let me zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. So make it a little bit longer, and it's kind of merged with the street at this point. And I'll move that right to the front doorstep. Okay, so I need some material for the street. I'm starting to kind of lose what's what, so I'll go up here and double click where it says cube and type in street, and double click cube 1, and that's my walkway. And we'll throw some material on that and get a quick render and see how that looks. So we can either go into the content browser, go to presets and visualize, or you could just do a search for materials and the material folder will show up. And there's stonework we've used for the house. That could work, or we could use asphalt, and this is a pretty dark textured asphalt, so I'll just drag that onto the street. Let me go back to objects to make sure I get it on the street. So I'm going to throw that onto the street, and I'll throw it onto the walkway as well. So get a quick render and see how this is looking. That looks pretty decent. There's a separation between the walkway and the street right now, and that probably won't be very evident in the render, but I'm just going to go ahead and highlight that and move it down just a touch. And it looks like they're pretty much even now. So I've got a street, I've got a walkway, a bunch of landscaping, and we have the physical sky to kind of set the lighting for us. So a few things, other things I want to add. I would like to add some type of trees around this. So let me just go ahead and highlight where it says glorious in the content browser, type in trees. And it looks like I've got a few tree folders here. Now let's go up to the European trees, and I'm going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit, check these out. Let me grab a chestnut tree. So I'll double click that, and I'll navigate and move that around a little bit. So now I have a tree. I'll move it down a little bit as well. And again, holding Command on your keyboard allows you to make copies of things. So you can just kind of move it over, put a tree here, and again, holding Command, I'll go ahead and move another tree out of there. So I'll move that one to the back. Now we can rescale these as well. So any of the objects that you have clicked on in your object browser, obviously we can go up to our scale tool, and I'm going to make this one a little bit larger so we can see it a little bit better. And they're all kind of facing the same way. So let me take this tree here, and I'm going to use the rotate tool, kind of rotate it around just for some variety. And if you want to grab some other trees, obviously, or some different shrubs and things like that, you can do that and add that to your landscaping. So let's see how this is looking. I'm going to hold Option, kind of pan around a little bit, and try to get a little bit better view of things, paying attention to my horizon line. I'm going to go down a little bit closer to where my house is, go up to split screen, and hit a quick render and see how this is looking. Now this is probably going to take a little while. Those trees I know are some objects that have a little bit longer file to them, so they may take a while to render, but I'll just give this a second to render. And I'm going to stop it there because I really like the look of that. Okay, so a couple other things I do want to add. Some people, obviously, and maybe a mailbox, and we'll throw a car in here as well. So I'll go back to the content browser, and let's type in people. And there are 3D people here, low res and medium res. And then there's some other rendered people down here. We can use any of these, even if they're like a silhouette. That might end up being kind of cool. So let's say that I'm going to take this Man02 design, and I'll go ahead and throw him into the picture plane. And with my move tool, I can move him out. And let's say he's on this little walkway. And let me zoom in so I can get him situated. And maybe inside the house, he's got a friend looking out the window. And one cool thing about this glass is that it actually is see-through. So let me kind of navigate and see if I can get her to be seen in the window. Again, if you're having problems with navigation, you can go up into that split screen and you can find objects a little bit easier. So I can navigate, I can see from an above view and see her kind of in the window there. But I'll go back to this view because I have it almost situated. And that's pretty cool. And I'd add as many people as you feel you need. Obviously, we're not building a theme right now. But we'll just kind of put our subjects where we want them for this render. So some other things, some other objects. Let's go back to the content browser. Go to presets, visualize. Let's go to 3D objects. And there's all kinds of things in here that we could add. Let's go to outdoor objects, street objects, and see what's here. So there's an actual street here. There's a fire hydrant if you want it out front. Some manholes we could add to the street if we wanted to. Street lamps, which could be kind of neat. And I'm just going to do a quick search. I don't know if there's a mailbox in here, but let me look. Nothing's showing up as mailbox, so let me just go back. And I'll grab a fire hydrant. Why not? And we'll throw a fire hydrant out there just for fun. And again, kind of go through things and find objects that you think will work. We could always model a mailbox as well if we needed to. So let me just navigate here a little bit. And I'm going to get my render from off to the side here rather than just doing a head-on render. Let me go back up into split screen. With all these objects, render may take a little while, but we'll kind of see how things are looking here. I actually really like the look of that. I wouldn't mind adding some more landscaping, some shrubs and things like that, so make sure that you do that to make things look a little bit more realistic. But this is looking like a pretty neat render. I wouldn't mind changing my my sky just a touch. Try to get a different time of the day. Oh, it's minutes. Hit a quick render here. Now I have some stronger shadows, and it just adds a little bit more interest to the scene. Let's go back and get one more thing in our content browser. Let me see if I can do a search for a car. Some materials. I'll go back to presets, visualize, objects, and let's see, vehicles. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just grab this this red car. I guess I could throw a bike in there too if I wanted to, but let me go up into the split screen. And I'm gonna pull that car out of the house, rotate it, and put the car on the street just to add a little bit more interest to the scene. And obviously it could just kind of keep going on and on and on, and you could add basically anything that you want. So now that I have that car there, I have to type in sit because I need to have somebody sitting, and we'll use this casual guy, double click him in there, and let me just throw this guy in the car. Have him sitting in the car driving. Now if I was to animate this, which I guess we can do in the next part of this tutorial, I'd have to make some adjustments to this guy. Let me go back into my normal view, because his feet are actually sticking out the underneath part of the car. I can see that down here, and we'll take care of that, I guess, in the next video. So let me just pan around just a little bit, and our composition's pretty heavy over here on the right hand side, and there's not a whole lot going on over here, so I can remedy that by either adding something to that other side, or in this case I'm just going to kind of navigate around and get a little bit better view of things. So let me go to this car design and lift it up. Its wheels are down in the street. Let me get that guy and move him up just a touch. I'm thinking if I move him over a little bit, I can remedy seeing his feet. So now there's a guy in the car driving, and a guy that's getting ready to walk out of the house and jump in the car, and looks like they're going fishing, and she looks pretty angry about that. But let's go ahead and get a render out of this and jump into an animation. So we'll go up into our render settings, and we'll go to Effect and click Ambient Occlusion and add Global Illumination as well. So Global Illumination is already set up here in the order, so we'll click that. So for render, we're going to go ahead and leave it standard. For save, we'll go ahead and leave it a TIFF, or you can select a JPEG or a PSD if you're going to work with it in Photoshop. But we'll just go ahead and leave that. Click this middle render button, render to picture viewer, and after the render, we'll go ahead and save it out. Alright, here's our first render. Let's do a quick critique and then go in and make some adjustments and re-render this. So just taking a look at maybe some issues that this image has. For one thing, the lady that's inside the house, we need to be able to see her a little bit better, so I need to drop a light inside the house. The house itself is hovering above the ground, so I'm going to have to actually move that down into the landscape itself. I'm good with the car, really like that. The house is lit pretty well, the scene's fine. I may adjust the sky, how it looks here just a little bit, but I do notice that, so my main area of emphasis would probably be the guy walking out here. He competes with this guy in this car, so I might move him forward just a little bit or light him a little bit, having him just off center. This area over here on the left hand side here, there's not a lot going on there, so I need to add something, a point of interest, without it getting too busy. And I would like to add something in the foreground here, just for an area of interest as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click out of that and just kind of go back into my scene and make some adjustments. So if I go to the content browser, click presets, double click visualize, go to 3D objects. I can go down to this little folder here, plants. double click that, and there's some cutouts of images that we can use. There's some, obviously, those trees that we use, but if we go to garden and exotic, this is going to give me some different things that I can add to my scene just to bring a little bit more interest to it. And I'm going to double click this this bush here and move that out, just to cover up a little bit of the house here and add a little bit of landscaping, make it look a little bit more realistic. I could move the house down to cover that little issue that I had with it kind of hovering above the ground. Just click house and I'll move it down, and obviously yours may not have had that issue, but I'm just going to go ahead and remedy that now. So I'll go back to the bush, and I'm going to make a copy of that. So again, holding command, I'll move it out and then move that over a little bit, and I'm going to shrink it down using my scale tool, move it into place, and maybe I have just a couple of those. So again, holding command, I'll just move it out, and I'm going to rotate this one so it doesn't look the exact same. So that adds a little bit of interest over there and kind of fill some stuff in. My fire hydrant, not the biggest fan of that, so I'm actually going to go ahead and delete that out of there. And I need to add something here in the foreground just to kind of either obscure the view or just bring some interest to it. So I could probably just, I'm just going to add a bush, but it'd probably be a good idea to either add some landscaping or perhaps a tree. So I'm going to go ahead and hold command, make a copy of that, move it over here, just so I have something kind of filling up the picture plane. And I'll scale that up just a touch too, just to kind of fill in the space. So there's a little bit more interest going there. All right, so we mentioned the woman inside the house. I'm going to move her down just a touch so I can see her face. And with the sun, how it was lit, or the physical sky setup, it was kind of hard to see her. So I'm going to pull light down into my scene, and I'm going to move that light and split screen to right beside where the lady is. So I can see in this view, I'll try to get it arranged a little bit closer to her, and you can see in the preview that light is kind of lighting things up outside as well. So I'll pull it back, and I'm going to actually backlight her and see how that looks. And I can make adjustments to the light, make it omni, and put some other features into it, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave that, and we'll check that with a render as well. Let's see, anything else? That should remedy that. There's a big negative space area here, but I think that's okay because I don't want to get too busy with the scene. But we'll go ahead and give this one more render. We'll save that out and kind of go from there. I'm going to keep the settings the exact same, hit render, and we'll take a look at this. Actually, one last thing that I did want to adjust. I'll go back to my physical sky, and just so you're aware of this, if you do hit sky here, or actually let me go to basic. So we're going to click basic and go down to load sky preset, and you'll be able to see a preview of some different looks to the sky, and we can swap those out. So let's say that we want the sky to look like that. Notice how it changed the lighting quite a bit, lightened it. You could do that, but let me go back and click through a couple of these. Oh, that's kind of a neat look. I've got some clouds back here now, and it did change the scene quite a bit and the look of it. But you could go in and change any of these presets with your attribute manager here too. So I'm just going to leave this. Let's hit this render as a final render, and we'll save it out and take a look at it here in a second. So here's the final render that I ended up with after just rotating the guy a little bit so that he's viewing out at the viewer. I added some grass texture to the landscape, changed the sky, and added lighting inside and the interior, obviously. So we're just going to go ahead and save this out. Go to File, Save As, leave it still image in TIFF, click OK, and we'll go ahead and give this a name. Save it to the desktop for print.